In this video, I would like to talk about a pretty important topic and warn about one scenario, which may occur in general. Looking at what I see now, and I would like to argue this scenario and make certain conclusions from that, what I will say now, that is, this is on the screen. This is not a screen. It's, by the way, a live chart you see long, right? Which was taken today, 115.472, and stop trigger, 105.250. Yeah? That is, we close the deal by foot. I close if the price is closed by a day candle below the foot line. And in terms of odds, it's a good deal. In terms of chances. At the same time, technically, I don't like this acquisition. And plus we take, not to bother, this is the figure, which is not fully worked out. Here is the figure, the double top. Here she is a technical figure, and her goal is about 113,500. Well, 114,000. Plus here on the 4 hour, such an interesting volume, twice the average, failed straight under the 200 move. And what we are seeing now is, in fact, technically only a leap back. I am just talking about a technical picture. No, I'm not saying that it can't be that we're going to be V-shaped once. Here we swallow this, here we go, and we turn. Maybe, but we still estimate a greater probability, yes, of some event. At 4 hours, the probability of the event is negative. As if there are still some upgraded scenarios. Here, technically remove this loy. Here, this loy. And maybe that's all up to here. Up to here, everything can be filmed. And this is from the RS4 week, to turn out already. Drawing some envelope there, for example. Technically, it is 4 hours. The days where I take those longs here seem to have no difference. Here it is all for me, a sidewalk. One big one. Here is, as for blockchain, yes, what I am relying on if we dig deeper. Not Nouvelle Caviard. And this is how it applies to Engine.com, that is, the last. Short tramp holder SOPR indicator. This indicator is the spend-output-profit ratio. That is, shows how on average during the day behaved. All wallets on average in the hospital, that is, if the indicator goes to the red zone, means in the average system in this hour is recorded loss. In my opinion, still in 2 hours takes a 1 hour resolution, 1 hour loss, if green profit. The higher the greener, the higher the profit, and the lower the loss. The more the loss, respectively, I will not walk around and about. Just say that historically, violent trends on an average hourly loss of 1% was considered in principle a moderate correction, sufficient for it to end and for it to once again unfold to the top, or to start some forming figure to turn up as it was at the end of June 22nd when we failed. On 100 there, $101,000 about there, and the average loss on the hospital maximum was 1.1%. I can even extend this way, take the last 6 months. Well, that is, yes, you can see how strong trends behave. Here, this is the 1% line, and as a rule, at 1%, we have always observed either a strong rebound or a twist. In general, back to the global trend. Sometimes not up to 1%, sometimes quite full. Average loss throughout the system. But now we are again close to almost 1%, although it has not been requested yet. Not yet 1%. If suddenly we shake this percentage very strongly, this percentages, and we go there to minus 2%, for example, on average by hour, as it was, for example, let's turn off a little November. Yes, 24 years. When the whole thing turned out. This is, for example, a picture. And cos. Here we go for a percentage. Looks like normal. They showed another shot is good, and here we went on February 3rd. Something there, Trump, slapped under his toll. Very much lower. That is more than 2% of the loss. A sharp breakthrough of the system. And those who close the loss, those in principle, close the losses. But for those who did not close it, it is already a tough signal for them. Close everything to zero, just like to get out to zero. If the price is... Then the price jumped back a little and everyone started to go to zero. Well, and further went already strong losses, that is up to 4% on average per hour, and the price fell from 788,000 to 78. Yes, the minimum was in April. The same was the case in May-March 2024. Here's the turn of this trend. That is, we show a loss here below 2%, okay? As long as we hold it, these hairs still hold, again below 2%, and here we fall almost below 4%. Everything that's happening now is a leap back. It's just a jump back before another fall. That is, such factors seem to change the paradigm of price movement, but so far it has not been. And while that wasn't the case, there's all the chances of assuming that we haven't put the heels yet. There are, of course, exceptions, rarely, but there are. As a rule, they are still related to some internal features of the network. Like, for example, we seem to have fallen here, yes, by a minus 2%, but that was the final point of fall before the renewal of all the historical hooves. Well, this was a drop due to the fact that there was a huge amount of speculative longs that were raised before the launch of the Bitcoin ETF. It was January 2024, and then dropped down, sold facts. That is, there are exceptions, but as a rule, this is a rarity. We come from statistics. Next, the short-term risk indicator, i.e. the cost basis model. It shows us the average purchase price of all short-term holders who, at a given time, have a dominant position in the market. Especially when the price is in a global uptrend, which is happening right now, and 2 upper deviations of the standard and 2 lower, respectively. 1 below, I apologize. Minus 1. 1 standard deviation, yes. And on rising trends, that is, the price has the tendency to fluctuate between their average purchase price and plus 1 standard deviation. That is, she is walking in this oscillator, but only in the direction of an upward trend, for example. Mode. And in the case of Euphoria, it goes into plus 2 standard deviations here in the red zone. This was observed, for example, in 2024. That is, although not here, we tried to break it, did not get it. Board 2 in 2005 for 2021. And there is already a line of tough Euphoria. Now we haven't gotten it yet. But it's not principle. The fact that given this behavior of the oscillator, the lower limit is on the mark now about $108 or $500. But again, it's now, and in rising trends, this oscillator rises along with the price, its range of fluctuations. And if literally there at the beginning of August it was 106,000, 105,000, it is 108,500, and he gradually increases. That is, the upper limit is 128, we haven't touched it yet. And if we fall to that average price of their purchase, it will be a good protective price. That is, you understand, yes, what I am leading to, that this is the line, and that here we have not yet reached 1% in the current phase, although they are already close but have not reached yet. And that here, as if the oscillator can oscillate. That is, yes, some reserve for the bears to develop this local success and ask below. This is the case below. This model is a risk indicator for short-term holders. Let us go on. This is also an interesting indicator. I like to use it. Realize price by age. Here we do not divide short-term and long-term holders. Here we just look at the average purchase price of each temporary cohort. That is, again, on strong bull markets, this cohort is 1 week or 1 month. That is, enough such fresh players. Yes, fresh players, fresh money in the market, although they may not be fresh because we don't share them. It can be BlackRock. There are some new wallets just translated, no matter. This is fresh money for the system. As a rule, this line is a strong support line. Well, that is, here we will take what has been going on with us since the beginning of April. Here is what we will clean up. Here is this line. And here we see, yes, that every time we tried to ask for this line, it was always a strong line of support. A strong support line. And as soon as we opened it, the movement down accelerated. Accelerated to the average purchase of the next cohort. It is 3 months. In fact, these are the short-term ones. That is, if we look at it, this line coincides plus minus with this model. In particular, short-term risk indicators. They are now, as they say, 1 or 3 months. Average purchase of 109,400. That is plus minus there, 108,500 here, 109,400. Very similarly, If we stretch this line, it finds a resistance. Then when it returns from the bottom upward of this line, there is a resistance of those. Who wants to go to zero? And here we come. And well-being. If this doesn't last, then we go to the next line and so on, and so on, and so on to the long term. But in general, this is how after, again, the adoption of the start of trading Bitcoin ETF, here we broke this line, here we move to the line of holders, their 1-3 months she held. And so on. But on strong trends here, you see yourself, it often holds. If it doesn't hold, go lower. That is, hypothetically, even if now this line does not hold, support it too, by the way. It raises up. And at the beginning of August, this line was 105,700 for 1 to 3 months. It is now 194, and every day it rises. That is, hypothetically, it could stretch there, 110, 111, somewhere there. It is possible to get to this line. So far for now, the price is in the area 116. And the line of this support of fast free money holders is 116,900. Plus minus range is 1,000. The percentage is 1,000. At the price of Bitcoin there, 120 to 110, almost nothing affects. For nothing. And further, net realized profit loss, amendment to entity adjusted. What's interesting here? Remarkable. What's in the strong bull markets in general, and just at least in the bull market, not necessarily strong, we always have a pure realized profile. In general, the market is growing. We are fixing the profile. During the times of some euphoric spotlight outbreaks, this all jumps the case, but on average, it has a certain line of support on local corrections, which are about here at the moment. You see, yes, every minimum where we go down finds a place either for a jump back or for the turn and upgrade of the next ATN. Now we have come down to that line again. Approximately it is on the mark underneath. $200-300 million of fixed profit, that is, net fixed position in profit. If we go into realized loss, that is, for example, as it was on 26 February, then the probability of a trend change is no longer short-term. In the medium term, it is rising considerably. Until it was so, until this happened, this is not observed. But bear in mind that right now we are approaching. At some critical point where there is a plus-minus either from the current or, let's say, okay, we will come to the mark their cost basis on short-term holders. The risk indicator is that, or we come to the average next cohort, it's 1-3 months, from there you need to unfold. It is desirable not to stay there for a long time, because if we stay there, it will be a net realized loss for the system, and it is bad. That is bad for... This is the medium-term movement. Because even, for example, in January at all this correction, there was no such landing that the system went into a net loss. There was no such. And further, it is also an interesting indicator that shows the likelihood of long-term growth in the future. Long-short-term holder supply ratio. That is, we take the net position of long-term holders and divide it into the net positions of short-term holdings. If we see that position falls, well, not the position, but the ratio, it means that long-term holders spend. They buy more on the market than they buy new short-term ones. That is, as a rule, the price never unfolds from one such slide. Almost always on any trend we have 2 or even 3 throws. Before either the strongest correction of the medium-term trend shift or, in general, before the macro top, when the entire cycle changes from bull to bear. What was it, for example, in 2021? Here, we have turned through 2 peaks. That was a strong enough twist of the medium-term trend in 2024, 2025? The continuation follows. There was a 1-2-3 cast. What was it we had in February, March 2024, 1-2 before the medium-term trend shift? And now it's just 1 peak. For the time being, only 1 peak which has no divergences or additional peaks. There's nothing here. That is, so far, the probability of continuing this long-term general trend is very and very high. And I use it. And that's why I'm not gambling at the moment. I only have a deal in long. And as soon as I see this is the second peak, well, most likely it will be on an update before this ATA, higher than 125,000, then you can already think about turning around. Or at least decrease a lot. As long as it is not there, it makes sense to really buy back all the strong landings, not only in the twist. The same applies to unrealized profits. That is, so to say, Bitcoins that could be sold with a good profit but have not yet been sold for some reason. Now we have set a new peak of unrealized profit at $1 billion for 122 million from August 13th. And this peak has not yet been closed. If we look at how history develops, again, medium-term trends, but in the long-term correction go away. We will see that it happens differently anyway. That is, for example, the same December, January there, yes, 25 years, we see put a peak. Then some correction is local, and here we are trying to put new peaks. The price as a whole is in the side. Here, she, in general, in the side, but the new peak to put on profit does not work. That is, everything the market cannot win here is the pressure of sellers, which is created from the outside, the influence of external everything the market gives up and goes into a local bear picture, medium term. Whether it will be global, nobody knows. But in the medium term, it will leave. The same goes for February, March, April 24th as well. You see, sidewalk, here we went into it, here we put the peak, and here we try to put a new one. Once, 2, 3, 4, we couldn't. We did not block the first peak, although we walked in the sidewalk for a long, very long time. The price here was in a tight range, and at this time it was possible to trade. Everything, now from what we see, here we put a peak, we also go some side, we can say, here's the side, we put a new peak, and now the price will try to block. Apparently, again, from my experience in fractionality, this is the picture of how this indicator works. Let's try to close that pitch. Let's say now even we will fall on 111, 112, and from there we will jump back, try somewhere in here. Let's see if it will work out or not. If it does, it's one scenario. If it doesn't, this is another scenario. But the fact is that we didn't even start trying. That is, there was not even a jump back so far to try to set a new peak. And as long as they are not there, it makes sense to also buy back what I do. Well, and the indicator of Aldisone, the so-called Aldisone. It is calculated by many metrics, but in general, if this is a purple, pink-violet line above the blue line, this means a fast move above a slow move, meaning the altas are growing faster than Bitcoin. That is, domination goes to the altar. Sometimes there are failures, as it was at the beginning of August, but overall the trend continues to rise. So far it is a promotion, and so far we are again slow-moving higher, more accurately apologize, fast-moving above slow. That is, yes, we had a failure in early August when it went down for a short time. It may happen, it may not be a disaster. That is, this was the case in the beginning of 2024, so we left twice, consolidated, and went further up. Then, when the altas grew faster than Bitcoin, that is, it was, and here, before Trump's victory, went up. That doesn't mean that all we've turned out and there won't be a season anymore. No, there was just a local correction in what it is out. I do not know yet. But since how a slow moving is lower than a fast moving, and preconceived, this means that the altas are still gaining speed or growing faster than Bitcoin, or, on the contrary, they lose Bitcoins more slowly. That's fine. It's a good sign that speaks of strength in altcoins, and while that's the case, it makes sense to work from the long and in the alt. And in the altar, again, largely focusing on this metric, and so far, judging by statistics, judging from experience, I work only in long. As soon as somewhere on these indicators the picture will change, well, as soon as you can start to think about more serious things. Of course, as soon as it starts to change, something there will probably already fall somewhere, otherwise it will not change. The indicator is an indicator, but this is the tribute you pay to earn before you work in plus on that indicator. And you take the loss you have received, and deduct it from the gain you have received. And almost always it is still a profit. based on all that I said, as it can be summarized, that the upward trend is there was no average strength correction. All these failures can be purchased. The potential of reducing the local picture, here is the local straight picture. This is the 4 o'clock. It is present. It is present until the removal of these levels. Liquidity, for me it is about, given all the indicators, well, okay, let's take their, 111,500 from here starting, and ending with the mark there, 100. The nearest liquidity, 114, 200, 114. Here is this range. It can be traded, can be traded. And even if that happens, I will not close this new long, because I still stop there under the mark of 105,000. The price should not go there, because if we go there, it is generally a huge risk of getting a bear. I do not see that so far, according to indicators. And as long as I do not see, I do not bet on this scenario accordingly. Probably not in favor of the bear. Here is, could there be a scenario in which we, for example, immediately buy out the arrow? But right here to say what it will be? No, that's what I'll guess. I do not know. I'm more accustomed to working badly. This is the bad thing when I put some of the worst options. And the worst I put here from here, here to here. And now, this is what I can go to. Sitting down, landing somewhere here. Until everything comes. Here I say, they will be bought. The alters are still there. The lower limits are set there. And so on. If it goes up, for God's sake, my long straight will go up too, even better. Then there I have the altas, which are already there. There are weeks there. Long deals will immediately go up. We will not sit over there in the seats of some local. We will immediately go up. I still feel good. That is, I have a position that is picked up, for example, here, picked up here, for example, here. I'm not about 4 hours of the century. I'll allow it a weekly schedule. I'm ready to get a lot of weight here. My average shifts here, in case of a negative scenario, because I'm working to increase down. And hence the likelihood of a jump back. Even just a jump back is huge. Just a chance of a leap back. In the worst case, I'm going to go to 0. No matter how many streams I did, it always worked. That is, and therefore, as if here purely we go out on risk management, on the analysis of the real picture, and on the blockchain analysis. In fact, everything. All I wanted, I told you. If you like this format of review, please like it. I will understand that I do this job not in vain. Because preparing a review on blockchain is more difficult, much more difficult, than just saying, on schedule, what I think is happening now.